April 9th, 1962, 11:23 p.m. Harlem Hospital, emergency room. Samuel, Old Sam Porter, was 71 years old, 5'6", and weighed maybe 140 pounds, soaking wet. He'd been a bantamweight boxer in the 1920s, never famous, never champion, but skilled enough to teach the fundamentals to kids in Harlem who needed somewhere to put their anger. One of those kids had been a teenage boy named Ellsworth Johnson, back in 1923, when Ellsworth was 15 years old and getting into fights he couldn't win because he fought with rage instead of technique. Old Sam had taught him how to turn rage into precision, how to read an opponent's body before they moved, how to absorb a punch and counter with something that ended the fight. Now, 39 years later, Old Sam lay in a hospital bed with 3 broken ribs, a fractured jaw, a concussion, and internal bleeding. The nurse filling out the intake form asked him what happened. "Fell down some stairs," Old Sam mumbled through swollen lips. The nurse wrote it down even though she didn't believe it. Nobody falls downstairs and gets injuries that look like they've been kicked repeatedly. But Old Sam wasn't changing his story, because the man who'd beaten him was named Vincent the Collector Russo. And Vincent worked for a loan shark named Paulie Terranova, and if Old Sam told the truth, Vincent would come back and finish what he'd started. The nurse finished her paperwork, gave Old Sam some pain medication, and moved on to the next patient. Old Sam closed his eyes and tried not to think about the $800 he owed, the $800 that had turned into $2,400 with interest, the $2,400 that Vincent had said needed to be paid by Friday, or things get worse. Today was Monday. Old Sam had 4 days, and no way to get $2,400. At 11:47 p.m., someone walked into the emergency room and asked the nurse which bed Samuel Porter was in. The nurse pointed. Bumpy Johnson walked past 7 other patients, pulled a chair up next to Old Sam's bed, and sat down without saying a word. Old Sam's eyes opened slowly. It took him a moment to focus, to recognize who was sitting next to him. "Bumpy?" Old Sam's voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah, Sam, it's me." "How did you—" "Julius was driving past when the ambulance picked you up. He recognized you, called me." Old Sam tried to sit up, winced, lay back down. "I'm fine, just took a fall." "No, you didn't," Bumpy said quietly. "You got beaten, and you're going to tell me who did it and why." "Bumpy, I don't want you involved in—" "Bumpy," Bumpy's voice was gentle but firm. "You taught me how to fight when I was 15 years old. You spent 6 months teaching me, didn't charge me a penny, wouldn't even let me sweep the gym to pay you back. You said, just pass it on someday. Remember?" Old Sam nodded slowly. "So now I'm passing it on," Bumpy said. "Tell me what happened." Old Sam told him. 6 months ago, he'd borrowed $800 to pay for his wife's medical bills. She'd had pneumonia, needed medication, needed care. Old Sam had gone to a loan shark because the banks wouldn't give him money, and he was desperate. The terms were brutal, 20% interest per month, compounding. Old Sam had tried to pay it back. He worked 3 jobs, swept floors, washed dishes, did whatever he could, but the interest kept growing faster than he could pay. 3 weeks ago, Vincent Russo had shown up at Old Sam's apartment, said the debt was now $2,400, said it needed to be paid by April 13th, said if it wasn't paid, things would get physical. Old Sam had tried to negotiate, tried to explain he was doing his best. Vincent had responded by breaking 2 of Old Sam's fingers. Tonight, Vincent had come back for a reminder payment. Old Sam didn't have anything to give him, so Vincent had beaten him in the alley behind his apartment building, while 2 other men held Old Sam's arms. "They said Friday," Old Sam whispered. "They said if I don't have the full amount Friday, they'll put me in a wheelchair, and if I still don't have it after that." He didn't finish the sentence. Bumpy sat in silence for 30 seconds. Then he said, "What's this loan shark's name?" "Bumpy, no, these are connected guys. They work for—" "I know who they work for. What's the shark's name?" "Paulie Terranova." Bumpy nodded slowly. He knew Paulie, mid-level operator, worked out of the Bronx, specialized in predatory loans to people who couldn't defend themselves. You know where the debt papers are? Bumpy asked. Vincent has them, keeps them in a briefcase, shows them to you before every payment to remind you how much you owe. Okay, Bumpy said, standing up. You rest, get better. Don't worry about Friday. Bumpy, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. This is handled. Old Sam grabbed Bumpy's wrist with his unbroken hand. Please, don't start a war over this. I'm not worth… Sam, Bumpy said quietly, looking down at the old man who taught him how to turn rage into precision 39 years ago. You're worth more than you know. Now rest. Bumpy walked out of Harlem Hospital at 12:03 a.m. He made 3 phone calls before he reached his car. April 10th, 1962. Day 1, 9 a.m. Vincent the Collector Russo woke up in his apartment in the Bronx to find his car missing. Not stolen, towed. There was a ticket on his door, vehicle removed for unpaid parking violations. Vincent called the impound lot. They said there was a problem with his registration. It would take 3 to 5 business days to resolve. Vincent cursed, called a cab, went to work. At 11:30 a.m., he received a phone call at his office. No name, just a voice. You beat an old man named Samuel Porter last night. Vincent's hand tightened on the phone. Who is this? Someone who's going to give you a chance. The debt is canceled. Destroy the papers. Never contact Sam Porter again. I don't know who you think you are, but you have until Friday to make this right. After that, there's no second chance. The line went dead. Vincent sat there for a moment, trying to figure out who'd just called him. Then he laughed it off and went back to work. Whoever it was didn't understand how things worked. Sam Porter owed money. That debt didn't just disappear because someone made a phone call. April 10th, 1962, Day 1, 3 p.m. Paulie Terranova received a visitor at his social club in the Bronx. The visitor was Julius Gordon, one of Bumpy Johnson's oldest associates. Julius sat down across from Paulie without being invited. We need to talk about Samuel Porter, Julius said. Who? Paulie asked. Old man, 71 years old. Your guy Vincent beat him last night over an $800 loan that's turned into $2,400. That's business, Paulie said, nothing personal. It became personal when Vincent put him in the hospital. Sam Porter is a friend of Bumpy Johnson's, taught him how to fight when he was a kid. So now Bumpy is asking nicely, cancel the debt, destroy the papers, walk away. Paulie lit a cigar, studied Julius for a moment. And if I don't? Then Bumpy stops asking nicely. I don't respond well to threats, Paulie said. It's not a threat, Julius said, standing up. It's information. You have until Friday to make this right. After that, what happens is on you. Julius walked out. Paulie sat there smoking his cigar, irritated but not particularly worried. Bumpy Johnson ran Harlem, Paulie ran the Bronx. They'd stayed out of each other's way for years because there was no profit in conflict. But Paulie wasn't going to let Bumpy Johnson dictate terms about a legitimate debt. That would make him look weak. So he did nothing. April 11th, 1962, Day 2. Vincent, the Collector Russo, went to make his usual Tuesday collections. 3 of his regular clients had moved, just packed up and left, no forwarding address. 2 others claimed they'd already paid, showed him receipts that Vincent knew were fake but couldn't prove. By the end of the day, Vincent had collected less than half of what he normally brought in. He reported this to Paulie. Something's wrong, Vincent said. It's like someone's interfering with the roots. Who? Paulie asked. I don't know, but it started after that call yesterday, the one about the old man. Paulie was quiet for a moment. You think Bumpy Johnson is doing this? I think someone is, and the timing's suspicious. Keep working, Paulie said. If people aren't paying, remind them why they should. But Vincent was starting to feel uneasy. Because the clients who'd moved, the ones with fake receipts, they all had one thing in common. They'd seemed relieved, like someone had given them permission to stop being afraid.
April 12, 1962, 11 a.m. Paulie Terranova received another phone call.
This is Bumpy Johnson. We need to meet. Today, noon, the diner on Webster Avenue. Paulie considered refusing, but curiosity won out. He arrived at the diner at 12 p.m. sharp. Bumpy was already there, sitting in the back booth, drinking coffee. Paulie slid into the seat across from him. "You wanted to talk," Paulie said. "Talk." "Sam Porter's debt," Bumpy said. "It's done. You're going to cancel it, destroy the papers, and leave him alone." "And why would I do that?" "Because he's 71 years old. He borrowed money to save his wife, and your collector put him in the hospital over interest rates that should be illegal. The rates were in the contract. He agreed to them. He agreed because he was desperate, and you exploited that. That's your business, I understand. But Sam Porter isn't your business anymore. He's mine." Paulie leaned back, studied Bumpy's face. "You're asking me to write off $2,400 because you used to know this guy?" "I'm not asking," Bumpy said quietly. "I'm telling you what's going to happen. You can make it easy, or you can make it hard. But either way, Sam Porter's debt ends today." "And if I say no?" Bumpy took a sip of his coffee, set the cup down gently. "Then tomorrow you're going to wake up, and your entire operation is going to start falling apart. Your collectors won't be able to collect. Your clients will disappear or stop paying. Your roots will dry up, and you won't be able to figure out how I'm doing it, because I've been building relationships in this city for 40 years, and you've been making enemies." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise," Bumpy said. "And just so we're clear, this isn't about territory or power or respect. This is about a 71-year-old man who once helped me when I had nothing. So I'm going to help him now. The only question is whether you make this easy or hard." Paulie was quiet for 30 seconds. Then he said, "What if Vincent doesn't agree? What if he wants to finish what he started?" Bumpy's expression didn't change. "Then Vincent won't be a problem much longer." The way Bumpy said it, calm and matter-of-fact, made Paulie understand something important. This wasn't negotiable. This wasn't business. This was personal in a way that meant Bumpy would go further than Paulie was willing to go. "I'll talk to Vincent," Paulie said finally. "The debt's canceled. We're done with the old man." "Good," Bumpy said, standing up. "Thank you for being reasonable." He dropped a $5 bill on the table for the coffee and walked out. Paulie sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to decide if he'd just been smart or weak. April 12, 1962, Day 3, 6:47 p.m. Vincent the Collector Russo didn't agree. When Paulie told him to cancel Sam Porter's debt and destroy the papers, Vincent argued. "We can't just write off $2,400 because Bumpy Johnson makes a phone call. That makes us look soft. That makes every other debtor think they can call in favors and walk away." "It's one debt," Paulie said. "It's not worth the trouble." "It's the principle," Vincent insisted. "We let this go, we lose credibility." "Vincent, I'm telling you to drop this. That's an order. And I'm telling you it's a mistake." Paulie stared at him for a long moment. "Are you refusing?" Vincent didn't answer immediately, but his jaw was set, his eyes hard. "I'm saying we should handle this our way, not Bumpy's way." "Then you're on your own," Paulie said quietly, "because I'm not going to war with Bumpy Johnson over an old man's debt. You want to push this, you do it without my backing." Vincent stood up. "Fine, I'll handle it myself." He left Paulie's office, went to his apartment, packed the briefcase with all the debt papers, and decided he'd finish this tomorrow. He'd go back to Sam Porter, make it clear that Bumpy Johnson's protection didn't mean anything, collect the money or break something that didn't heal. Vincent went to bed at 11 p.m., confident he was making the right choice. He never woke up. April 13th, 1962, Day 4, 8:30 a.m. Vincent the Collector Russo's landlord knocked on his apartment door at 8:30 a.m. because Vincent's radio had been playing loud music all night and neighbors were complaining. No answer. The landlord used his master key, opened the door. The apartment was empty. The radio was playing. The bed was made, but Vincent wasn't there. His car keys were on the counter. His wallet was on the dresser. His briefcase, the one with all the debt papers, was gone. But Vincent Russo was nowhere to be found. April 13th, 1962, 11 a.m. Polly Terranova tried calling Vincent all morning. No answer. At 11:30 a.m., Polly went to Vincent's apartment himself. The landlord let him in. Polly stood in the middle of Vincent's apartment, looking at the made bed, the wallet on the dresser, the keys on the counter, and he understood immediately what had happened. Vincent had insisted on pushing forward with the Sam Porter debt, and now Vincent was gone. Polly called the police, filed a missing persons report, gave them Vincent's description, his address, his vehicle information. The report was taken, a case number was assigned. Nobody actively investigated because everyone in the NYPD who worked organized crime knew the same thing. Vincent Russo had worked for a loan shark, had crossed Bumpy Johnson, and people who did that had a way of disappearing. April 14th, 1962, Day 5, 8:30 a.m. Bumpy Johnson visited Harlem Hospital at 2 p.m. Old Sam was sitting up in bed, eating lunch, looking better than he had 3 days ago. "Bumpy?" Sam said, his voice stronger now. "I heard Vincent didn't show up yesterday. I was supposed to pay him by yesterday, or—" "You don't have to worry about Vincent or the debt. It's handled."
What do you mean, handled? I mean, the debt doesn't exist anymore. The papers are gone. Nobody's coming to collect. Old Sam stared at him. "Bumpy, what did you do?" "I had a conversation with Polly Terranova, explained the situation. He agreed to cancel the debt." "And Vincent?" "Vincent isn't a problem anymore." Bumpy's expression didn't change. Old Sam understood what that meant. He'd lived in Harlem long enough, had seen enough, had heard enough stories. "Bumpy, you didn't have to—" "Yes, I did," Bumpy interrupted gently. "Sam, you taught me something when I was 15 years old. You taught me that fighting isn't about rage. It's about knowing when to strike and when to wait, when to use force and when to use precision." He paused. Vincent didn't understand that. He thought beating a 71-year-old man over money was an acceptable way to do business. He was wrong, and now he's learned that some debts don't get collected because the cost is too high. "What's going to happen to him?" "I don't know," Bumpy said honestly, "and neither does anyone else. But what I do know is that you're safe. Your wife is safe, and you're never going to hear from another loan shark as long as you live." Old Sam's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," Bumpy said. 39 years ago, when you taught a 15-year-old kid how to fight smart instead of angry. This is just me returning the favor." Vincent the Collector Russo was never found. His missing persons case remained open for 7 years, then closed due to lack of evidence. His apartment was eventually cleared out by his landlord. His belongings were put in storage. Nobody came to claim them. The briefcase containing all of Polly Terranova's debt papers was never recovered. 3 days after Vincent disappeared, Polly received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a single piece of paper. It was Sam Porter's debt contract, burned around the edges but still readable, and stamped across it in red ink, "Paid in full." No note, no explanation, just the burned contract and the stamp. Polly understood the message. The debt was canceled, Vincent was gone, and if Paulie wanted to keep operating in the Bronx without interference, he'd let this go. He did. Old Sam Porter was released from Harlem Hospital on April 18, 1962. He lived another 12 years, passing away peacefully in 1974 at the age of 83. During those 12 years, he never received another threatening letter, another intimidating visit, another demand for payment. The loan sharks who operated in Harlem knew better, because word had spread about what happened to Vincent the Collector Russo when he'd beaten an old man who'd once taught Bumpy Johnson how to fight smart instead of angry. The story was told in whispers, in the kind of conversations that happened in the back rooms of social clubs and the dark corners of bars. Nobody knew exactly what happened to Vincent. Nobody knew where he'd gone or what Bumpy had done. But everyone knew the lesson.
Some people are protected, not by laws, not by contracts, not by agreements, by loyalty that runs deeper than business, deeper than money, deeper than fear. Vincent Russo had beaten a 71-year-old man over $800, and in doing so, he'd learned too late that the price of disrespecting someone under Bumpy Johnson's protection wasn't measured in money. It was measured in existence. And Vincent's existence had simply stopped. No body, no grave, no witnesses. Just gone. Years later, a journalist asked Bumpy about Vincent Russo. "People say he disappeared after beating an old man you knew. Is that true?" Bumpy was quiet for a moment. Vincent made a choice. He decided that beating a 71-year-old man over a debt was acceptable behavior, that breaking bones and threatening someone who couldn't fight back was just business. What happened to him? "I don't know," Bumpy said, "and I don't spend time thinking about people who disappear after making bad choices." "Some people say you had him killed." "Some people say a lot of things," Bumpy replied. "What I'll tell you is this. Sam Porter was a good man who taught me something valuable when I was young. And when someone hurt him, I made sure it didn't happen again. How I made sure of that isn't something I discuss." "Do you think Vincent's alive?" Bumpy smiled slightly. "I think Vincent learned that some debts get collected in ways that have nothing to do with money. Whether he's alive to remember that lesson, I couldn't say." The story of Vincent Russo's disappearance became part of Bumpy Johnson's legend. Not because anyone talked about it openly, nobody did. But the loan sharks who operated in New York after April 1962 all knew the story. They knew about the old boxing coach. They knew about the beating. They knew about the collector who'd vanished 3 days later. And they adjusted their behavior accordingly. Old men didn't get beaten anymore. Not if there was any chance they had a connection to Bumpy Johnson. Deaths were negotiated with more care, with more humanity, because the lesson of Vincent the Collector Russo was clear. You could collect money, you could collect interest, but you couldn't collect on people who were protected by something stronger than contracts. And if you tried, you didn't get a warning. You didn't get a second chance. You just disappeared. Completely. Permanently. Without a trace. That's not business. That's justice delivered by someone who understood that loyalty to the people who helped you isn't optional. It's sacred. And sacred things, when violated, bring consequences that last forever. Or, in Vincent Russo's case, consequences that end everything.